This is our beer. We have 2 different kinds in here. As you can see, this one was very active, and so we had to make this setup so that it could come bubbling out and go bubbling into the sanitizer water. So I'm going to show you how to take these 2 carboys, and we're going to bottle beer today. So here is our sugar. You can use regular white sugar. This is a sugar that you buy at a beer store, and it's a finer powder. It just dissolves quicker. And I already went ahead and did 5 ounces. I boiled 2 cups of water and mixed in 5 ounces of that white sugar. And since I'm doing 2 batches, I have 2 different ones ready to go. So these 2 are cooling on the counter. Alright, in here I have a whole setup already. So we got a lot of bottles that we've been saving. This is full, and all of these. So we're going to need a lot of bottles today. So I already have these soaking so that I can remove the labels. So what I have this soaking in is hot water and PBW. PBW is excellent for getting labels off of bottles. You can buy it online at any beer store. It does have instructions on how much to put in. I honestly just dump in a few tablespoons. I let them soak for 15-20 minutes, and you can see the labels just start coming right off. My favorite way to get these off is I use a Mr. Clean sponge, and that gets all the residue off of the bottles. So that is my next project. So I have my Mr. Clean sponge, and I'm going to start washing off these bottles. As you can see, since they've been soaking, the label comes off very nicely. And then I'm going to stick it into the sanitizer water that I have here. My sanitizer water is made with 5 gallons of hot water, and I use Star San. For some reason, PBW makes these bottles incredibly slippery, so I have to be very careful. Every time I do this, I somehow manage to break a bottle, so I have to keep them low in water so they don't slip out of my hands. I often hold the bottle up to the light to make sure that there's no residue in the bottom, and if there is, I get a bottle brush. I have a small one that I use to scrub the inside. But if the bottle was pre-rinsed, I just swish some water around in there, and that's usually good enough. This process takes a while. I often listen to audiobooks to make it go faster. So after sanitizer water, you can see that it has bubbles inside and outside of the bottle, but that is not a problem. I do not rinse after sanitizing. I just simply put upside down. Those bubbles are not harmful to the beer, and we can fill the bottle with those bubbles still. My first bottle broken. Man, that stuff is slippery.
Look at my mommy nail.
Yes. You need assistance?
I do need assistance. I will just keep this here in case it happens again. Hopefully not. We are back. That I have for bottling. When the bottles have residue, which I just found one that does, sometimes there's leftover residue in the bottom that won't just rinse out. So I use this small brush and encourage it by rubbing it around the bottom. Not all beer labels come off as easily as these do. I found that this brand, the Lagunitas, and also, see if I can find the other label here, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, these two come off very easily. Now if you're always buying bottles, that's another option. You can just buy new clean bottles without labels. But we make various different kinds of beer, and so we are labeling them with our own names. So this process cannot be skipped altogether if you're going to label your beer. But you can just continue to reuse the bottles instead of buying new beer. We choose to actually just buy full bottles and enjoy a beer and then clean it off instead of buying an empty, clean bottle from a store. That doesn't make a lot of sense to us. Why not have a beer while you're at it? And you definitely, if you're going to be reusing bottles, you want to get a beer that has been bottle conditioned because they have a stronger glass on their bottles. Alright, so here we have the carboy. Mr. Farmer helped me lift it up here. It's really heavy. It does definitely help to have a handle on it, but I still have him help me. So I am ready to transfer this to the bottling bucket. I fully sanitized the bottling bucket, and also this is so you can buy all of this. It can be a little confusing to get all the right sizes of hoses. You just have to pay attention to that. But this is a siphon that is sanitized and is gonna go down in to siphon this out. And then I have to have this hose going into my bucket. We have come up with this system. We need absolutely as little movement of the beer as possible. We do not want aeration to happen. So I have sanitized this lid, and this is a bottle filler. It has a little trigger here on the bottom that if it's pressed, the beer flows out. So what I do is I stick it in here and it goes into the bucket, and so it presses on the bottom of the bucket, and that is going to cause the beer to flow very slowly into the bottom of the bucket without splashing. So it can be a little tricky to set it up, but I send this hose through. These bottling buckets have a hole in the top, so I send the hose through that hole. And I'm doing this all in the air because I don't want to touch anything. My hands are sanitized. Everything here is sanitized. So it can, sometimes I wish for 3 hands to do this. Alright, so that is set up in there. Then I take this off. And this has this great hook, so you don't really have to worry about this sucking the yeast out of the bottom, because as you can see it has this 1/2 inch space that holds it up off the bottom. So if you get a beer siphon, it should have that on there. And then I just give it a pump to get it started. Oh, let's not forget our sugar. So before we start, our 5 ounces of sugar has been dissolved in 2 cups of boiling sterilized water. It has cooled down, and I'm going to put this in the bottom of the bucket. I gave it a pump to get it started. Once the beer is flowing, I set this bucket down on the ground just to aid in the speed of the transfer. Alright, so we're just going to let this alone, and it's going to drain without any aeration, and I have the lid on so it keeps it sanitized in there. This is a fairly important part to keep it all clean and also to keep it from getting any bubbles.
At this stage in the process, one of the key things to do is to take a final gravity reading. So even if you've missed the original gravity, which is right after you're finished with the brewing, and when the beer is ready to go into the fermenter, taking the final gravity reading won't tell you exactly what your percentage of alcohol is by volume, but it will kind of give you an idea of how finished the beer is and how how well the yeast has attenuated the beer. So I'm going to do that right now, and I have not sanitized this. I'm going to sanitize my hands, but the reason I'm not going to do that is because I actually like to taste it at this stage to see how it turned out. So if I'm taking a reading here, rather than risk contaminating the beer and putting it back in, I just don't put it back in, I just drink it to see how it tastes at this point. So it's a good way to kind of get a feel for what the beer is like without the carbonation. So now I have my sample of beer, and as you can see, I got a few bubbles and stuff in there. So that's another reason I don't want to return it to the bucket. It's a fairly small amount anyway. So the hydrometer just goes in there. I almost always put too much in. I guess I got it right that time. So now we take the reading on this side, and so this one at the bottom of the meniscus is 2, 4, 6, 8, 1.08. So that's pretty good. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit higher, so I'm very happy with that. That means we've turned as much of the sugar into alcohol as we could. That's a great result. It means the yeast did its job. So now we're ready to start bottling.
Right, so here we have 48 bottles that are sanitized and ready to be filled. I have the caps soaking here in sanitizer water, and we have the bucket here full of beer that's been transferred, and now we're ready to fill bottles. We'll show you that step next.
Okay, so we have this set up. We've done this quite a few times already, so we kind of know what we want. It's really nice to have a counter space like this when you have lots of room to set the bottles once they're filled. So that's what we start with. These racks are fantastic. I would highly recommend them. We elevate this so that the beer will flow out by gravity. You've got to have that, else you never get it out. So for equipment, for bottling, it's good to have these bottle holders. We need a capper. We need the caps. We need some type of bottling bucket. It could be all kinds of different buckets. And then we have a hose and a bottle filler. And the way this is set up is to minimize oxygen contact while we're going into the bottle. So then,
Hold on, I have sanitizer water in this.
we put this end in, around the valve, and we're ready to start filling.
And all through this process, sanitize your hands repeatedly. And it helps to turn on the valve.
So this bottle got a lot of bubbles in it. That's not great, but it's also one bottle, so this one will probably oxidize a little bit. It may not be that great. Some of that's unavoidable. But now we have the air out of the system. We could do it other ways too, but that air initially has to get out somehow. I would not recommend this style of capper, but I also haven't used any others. I really hate these things. I don't think they work very well. There's the first bottle. Okay, so that's the process. We started with just over 5 gallons, and we have 50 bottles. They're all 12-ounce bottles, even though we have some different sizes. So that's it. We're done. 50 bottles of beer. Now we're going to leave this at room temperature for about 2 weeks. And I'll probably sample it in a week because I have to. But it should be ready, fully ready in a week and a half or 2 weeks. It varies with the beer, but I think this one is going to be fairly short. So we'll have some soon.
Saving Miller out.